I don't see how you can hate from outside of the club. You can't even get in. Hey y'all, welcome back to Scared of Beautiful. My name is Plez. If you are joining me tonight, welcome. Thank you for checking out my channel. We are getting into a review of Married to Medicine. We're in season 8, episode 2, and the episode is titled Graduation Snub, honey. So, we get into the episode. We pick right back up where we left off from last week at Dr. Damon's 50th birthday party. And as we remember, honey, Toya was living up to her name. She was turning up per the usual on her Patron. She was confronting Heavenly and Simone, calling them fake on their alleged makeup at the reunion from last season in New York. She was yelling at them, telling them that it's fake, they're phony, and she's tired of it. So she gets up, she goes and interrupts the men where they are gathering and tells Cecil that she is tired of his wife and her fakeness. She tells Damon she's tired of his wife and her fakeness. And also Curtis. She's tired of his wife too. And, as drunk as Toya was, I agree with her. We're all tired of it. We're over it. We're completely tired of it. This fight has been going on for so long at this point. They either need to make up or accept the fact that the friendships are just over. It's one thing to have a 20-year friendship, and it's a beautiful thing. But all people aren't meant to be in your lives forever. Sometimes things just run their course. And honestly, I feel like that's where Jackie and Simone may be. Or, eventually they'll be able to make up, but it has to be an organic thing where they come together on their own, not being forced together because of reality TV shenanigans, right? So, in terms of the show, I'm just over it on these reality shows where they're trying to force reunions, force people to get along. It's just getting old. It takes the reality out of the reality TV for me. But Toya says that to the husbands. Her husband, Eugene, is like, what is going on? You're doing too much, honey. Let's walk away. He takes her off to the van. All of the other husbands are like, what the hell happened? The Tasmanian devil Toya came through and they were shook. Then they try to blame it on COVID, saying that everyone has been stuck inside for so long. They're under a lot of stress with everything that's happening with Black Lives Matter and social justice in the country. And I agree, last year was very stressful. However, we've seen these types of blow-ups, particularly with Heavenly. She is always planting a seed, starting something that doesn't need to be started. And even when she's allegedly on a spiritual journey, the little fake crap she tried the other season, a couple of seasons ago with Jewel Tankard, she still manages to blow up, cuss people out, and be disrespectful. So let's see what happens. Simone, tries to tell Heavenly, hey, you don't have to keep apologizing to me. I should have reached out after New York and told you that I really didn't have any ill will towards you. I should have been the bigger person and tried to reestablish that communication. She admits that she could have done more in healing these friendships. Heavenly and Simone then decide that they can at least be cordial to each other, at least speak when they're around each other. That kumbaya lasts for a second. And Heavenly then says, well, you also haven't been talking to Jackie. Jackie is a grown woman, Heavenly. Jackie can speak for herself. If she misses Simone, if she wants to heal that fractured relationship, she has to be the one to speak up and do it. But of course, no, Heavenly sticks her nose in per the usual and says, you haven't been talking to Jackie either. So Simone says, I have not. And she goes on to tell Jackie that I was very hurt by you comparing our 20-year friendship with you and Heavenly's friendship last year in New York. I would think after everything we've been through over the last 20 years, that would mean more to you than your 3 to 4 year friendship with Heavenly. Jackie, instead of taking a moment to digest that, we're supposed to listen to hear and understand, not to respond. Unfortunately, Jackie hasn't gotten that far yet, so she goes straight back at Simone and says, yes, and I was very hurt when you didn't defend me against Buffy. Y'all, I'm so sick of Jackie trying to act like she was the victim in that situation. Ma'am, you took someone's personal, confidential health information and shared it with a room of hundreds of people. You didn't ask her permission. Even if she had shared her struggles with infertility with your friend group, that was like 5 or 6 people, not 500. How can you not understand that you were wrong? A lot of people get so ego-driven and defensive. Oh, I didn't mean it that way. It doesn't matter how you meant it, sister. You did it. You were flagrant with doing it, and you should have genuinely apologized. What you did to Buffy does not compare with you equating your friendship with Heavenly to Simone, you and Simone's friendship. Those two, when we're balancing out the scales, they don't match up, Jackie. I'm sorry. They just don't. Furthermore, as Simone went on to say, I did defend you. I told Buffy that was not your character. However, the question that she was asked at the reunion was, did she feel your apology that was offered on that vacation was appropriate? And her answer was no. My answer would have been no. Your apology to Buffy consisted of, my bad, get over it. That's not how you apologize for that level of transgression. It's just not. It was insincere. It was full of ego. And it wasn't a good look. You got to sit in that, sis. I'm sorry. I know you're a perfectionist. I know you're the good girl. I know you're the one who does everything right. You got it wrong this time. When we first started this show, you were the first one calling people to the couch, to the red table of sorts. excuse me, your AKA to the pink table, wanting to do lemon squeezes with everybody, bringing sorority life outside of the sorority, but okay. Wanting everybody to talk about their feelings and get it out and, make amends. How does this not apply to you? Make it make sense. Anyway, sorry. Heavenly then goes on to make this sly remark because Simone, after Jackie says that, Simone is again hurt and very emotional and it's just like, you could never be my friend if you thought that I wouldn't defend you or if you think that I was just on Buffy's team for no reason. Then Heavenly says, butts her nose in again. So you never made any derogatory statements about Jackie? Tell me, how was that helpful? How? People always ask me, like, why don't you like Heavenly? Because of this. She does stuff like this. Butts her nose in and literally adds lighter fluid to a fire that is already burning well enough on its own. Even if she thought Jackie had said something derogatory, Simone had said something derogatory about Jackie, Jackie can speak up for herself. You are not her mama, her protector. Last time I checked, this is a 50-plus-year-old woman who has several businesses. She clearly knows how to be very assertive and vocal when it serves her. She does not need you to be her mouthpiece or her pit bull. And that is exactly what it turned into. So she says, oh, so you never said anything derogatory about Jackie. Simone gets up and storms off and says, no, I would never. Why would I say anything derogatory about my friend for the last 20 years? She had to keep throwing that one in there. She runs off to the side, crying, emotional again. Jackie just sits there like the bump on the log she is. She doesn't get up to confront her friend. She doesn't say anything to Heavenly about butting in or even bringing her up in the first place. So Cecil and the new girl, Anila, go to comfort Simone. Simone finally comes back and says that, Heavenly, I'm not upset with you. I have no ill feelings towards you with my relationship with Jackie. But as far as she and Heavenly are concerned, she feels like Heavenly went too far. And she's again referencing these old tweets where Cecil popped off and said that Heavenly's house needed to be power washed. Heavenly chimed back in, calling the man all kind of drunks, talking about how he is unemployed and not, barely passing a real estate license, something like that. It was a hot mess. We all know what happened. Heavenly then gets indignant, per usual, and says that Cecil started it and she finished it, and the MFer just couldn't take how she finished it. Simone stands up herself and says that she should start tweeting and posting some things about Damon. Heavenly says, B, put it on out there. The witch word with the B. And then don't F with me, the F word. I'm trying to be nice and make up with your dirty ASS. Look, y'all. Look. This is what I meant. That devil, that hell that's in Heavenly, it came right out. real quick. And this is why I have never liked her or respected her. This is, I don't know, the third or fourth or fifth or sixth, I don't know how many times at this point. She goes off like this every season when she's the main one who starts the mess and keeps up the mess. Now she does it even to Jackie, but she tries to hide it under the. Ugh, I cannot. I'm sorry. Y'all can let these women say shade you and say they your friend. No, Heavenly is miserable. The only reason she kissed up to Jackie is because she understands that Jackie, for whatever reason, is basically the face of the franchise at this point. She didn't like Jackie, as she said in the beginning. But once she started to see that Jackie was the head honcho, she had to weasel in between her and Simone. I'm over it. Contessa breaks them up. Damon comes in per the usual, to act as daddy and calm the child down. Tells her that there's no reason for her even to be mad at Simone, and there's not. Too much has happened. Life is too short. Black people are under siege. We don't need to be fighting each other. I agree with Dr. Damon. Simone goes back to the van to leave. Tells Toya about what happened. Toya's like, do I need to go fight a bit? I love Toya. She's down for the cause, even though she wasn't there. She's like, I told y'all we needed to leave. So they leave. We flash to a scene. We see little Alora has grown up. These kids are getting so big. Heavenly is telling her she can't have a boyfriend, per usual. Alora laughs at her, per usual. Toya then comes home, and we see her talking to her boys, helping them with their schoolwork. She says that the boys miss school and they want to go back. And I mean, I can see that. They're rambunctious. They're growing fast. Virtual school just really isn't fun. I mean, it may be fun for like a week or two, but after a while, kids are kids. But they're still trying to protect them. She does say that she will be transferring their schools, sending them to a new school, I guess, whenever schools decide to open back up in Georgia. And that she shares this really good story. And it's often something that I think about, when I have my children. We get to a place in life as professionals, especially, and we want the best for our children. And unfortunately, in some areas, public school systems aren't really good. Charter systems aren't necessarily that much better, and we want to give our children the best. So because of the neighborhood she moved into, the school that she went to was not very diverse. There weren't a lot of black or brown boys. And Toya said she really started to notice that once the George Floyd situation happened. The school was not having conversations with the children about racism, about Black Lives Matter. And that was not acceptable for her and Eugene. But she looked around and said, hey, they don't have to have these conversations because it's mainly white kids. So they're going to pull the boys, put them into a new school that is very much so more diverse. I applaud them for doing that. There has to be a balance. You want your children to get the best education, but you also want them to be socially and culturally accepted. And that social and cultural component of your nurturing, is just as important as the traditional book learning. So I'm glad that they did that. She says to try to balance it out, she took her boys protesting. They were able to see and understand what this will mean to them growing up in this world as young black men. And then she starts talking about the tuition, telling the boys they got to make sure that they are doing good in school, keeping their grades up because the tuition is $25,000 per child. Look, y'all, this is why for me, when I'm looking for a house, it's like, let me look at these school districts. Let me see what school district has an A. Because I'm just not a fan of paying a college tuition basically every year while your child is still underage. I am a product of a public school. They work, right? You get the right one, they work. That is what I'm going to be looking for when I become a mama. But she tells them that they need to get their schoolwork because that's a new Gucci bag she could have. And I was so here for it because her child was like, a Gucci bag you don't need? Yes, child. See, the children are our future. Your child is telling you that you don't need all this materialistic stuff that you have your husband slaving away for. Then you complain that he's never at home. You want your husband at home and alive, Toya, or you want them Gucci bags? Get it together, sis. Scott and Contessa, we see them pull up to this new building. We come to find out that they are starting a medical practice together. They meet with their contractor, and he claims that they'll be done in a few weeks. Whew. Scott and Contessa, I don't know if y'all ever dealt with construction before, but multiply the few weeks by about 3. And you might be done in about a few months. They start talking about their relationship needing some more work as they're now going to embark on working together and, of course, staying married and living together. Yeah, I know, it's good to like save money and not be renting all of these places, but it is very hard to work and live with your partner, especially when you already have the issues that they have with their communication. We'll see how it plays out. He starts talking about them not going to therapy anymore, not going to the marital counselor. And I just honestly think that's a big mistake. I really hate that a lot of Black people are so against therapy and counseling, and I don't understand why. Scott says they're smart enough to do it on their own. If you were smart enough to do it on your own, you wouldn't have the issues that you have now. Counseling and therapy has nothing to do with being smart. You need a third party, someone who's completely impartial, to hear the issues that you all are having and be able to pull those issues out and make you hear it differently. You always hear things differently from another person versus the person who yells at you or nags you every day. And I can just speak to myself. I started therapy in 2018. I have a bachelor's in psychology, a master's in social work. And I kept telling myself, I should be able to do this on my own. I should be able to do this on my own, not wanting to go to therapy. And I had to go to therapy. Like, I went on Psychology Today, looked up some therapists, called like after Labor Day in 2018 because I was at a point where it was like, no, I got to talk to somebody, And I just want more people to get that before they kind of reach those levels. Therapy will do wonders if you are ready for it. And if you put the things that you learn into practice. But part of it is just getting all of that out of you. Having somebody to vent to that can't run back and tell anybody else, y'all. I'm just saying, it's worth it. Try it out. I hope Scott and Contessa rethink that because they have a very nice family. And I want to see them stay together, especially with those 3 gorgeous children. Heavenly, we see her next. She had to close her office because of COVID. And now she is opening back up and she has a very familiar patient to the people in the YouTube streets, Mr. Quentin Latham, Funky Dineva. I have followed Funky probably since 2008, 2009 for the longest. So he's a YouTube legend in these streets, right? Heavenly goes on to say they met somewhere in Atlanta, honey. And she really liked him because he's controversial and tells it how it is. And people getting their feelings with him just like with her. Heavenly, uh, uh, again, girl, tell that to somebody else who doesn't see you for what you are. You are a vulture. You are a social climber of the highest level. You like Funky Dineva because you know about his audience and his reach here on the YouTube. Dr. Heavenly has been trying to get put on for years. It's not enough just to be a dentist. She wants to be seen. It goes back to that stuff she told us a few years ago, y'all, in Florida. So she's been trying to get her little YouTube channel off the ground for about 8 to 9 years. If you go over there, you'll see what I'm talking about. She has videos going back for years that doesn't have that many views. And so, her embracing Funky Dineva was very strategic. Very strategic. And again, I'm never gonna blame a hustler. I'm just here to let you know I see you, sis. You just need to be honest with it. You used Mariah, you got on, you distanced yourself from her. I don't know if you'll ever distance yourself from Funky Dineva, but you didn't just like him because of the things he said. You liked him because you knew enough people to where you could gain access to him. And once you gained access, you tried to leverage you doing his teeth and all of this stuff for you to come up a little bit in these YouTube streets and add a little more coin to your bottom line, honey. Okay. She fixes his teeth, gives him some implants. The teeth look very nice. I'm never going to shade her work. Her work looks nice. Congratulations, Quentin. Anila and family, we see them next. Y'all, I'm trying not to judge Anila because she is who she is. I am judging production because this is an obvious carbon copy or attempt at a bootleg carbon copy of Mariah Huq and her family. Her husband is a ocular, facial plastic surgeon. But y'all, when he came, this isn't our first time seeing him, but when he came out in the house, just his voice and everything about him reminded me of Aiden. Even down to their children. They have a daughter who's a few years older and then the son who's younger. So it's literally like they tried to go out and audition women who were Indian. You could have picked all types of women in Atlanta. Atlanta is very diverse. So the fact that y'all chose an Indian American with the husband and the children in that configuration, it's disgusting, honestly. She goes to talk about basically her life. She had a very corporate job in New York. She met her husband, quits her job, and then transitions into blogging. She created a niche for herself as an Indian American woman who loves fashion, and it's a great thing. She's building a house. They live in the same neighborhood that Toya lives in, and Toya has introduced her all around. They're using the same builder that Toya and Eugene used. I'm going to give her a chance, but production, too shady, too just distasteful. I don't like it. Next, we get to Michael's graduation party. I really like seeing the kids in the confessionals. We see Michael in the confessionals with his mom. We saw him last episode. He's back this episode. The party is a tailgate at Simone's office. They have people out there barbecuing. Their brisket look delicious. Then they have an ice cream truck that pulls up. So I thought that was a really cool idea. He still gets to have a party, have friends and family around. They're outside where it's a little bit safer. They show pictures from the graduation, some video. He was actually able to walk across the stage, which I'm so happy about. A lot of kids did not get to walk across the stage, so I'm glad they were able to make that happen at his school. His parents just give him a few pep talks, telling him to stay focused on his schoolwork. Simone says, not on the girls. And Michael is like, I can do both. And Cecil agrees, starts spilling some of Simone's tea about how she was a barmaid when she was in school. And Simone's like, yeah, I was always about my coin. Cecil then goes on to say, you also were about the grown men in BMW 7 Series coming to pick you up. I see you, Simone. Simone's like, I had them left and right. But she fell in love with Cecil. He was her neighbor in her apartment complex. And Lord, she finds out that he only had a Hyundai with no air. She was like, if I knew that before I started talking to him, he wouldn't have gotten a chance. They had a cute little moment. I really like that. Everyone starts showing up, and we get to finally see who's been invited to dinner, to the party. Eugene is the first one showing up. He starts talking about how crazy it is seeing Michael grow up. And it is. Like, I remember all those flashbacks that they show of Michael being a little kid. And now here we are 8 years in. And he is graduating high school and going to college. She invites Anila. We see Anila and her husband and the kids show up. She says that she invited Anila because when everything happened at Heavenly's house, Anila was somebody who ran over and really stood with her and supported her. I don't know about that one, Simone. I mean, I get it, but you're doing a little much right there. Toya comes, of course, with the kids. Eugene has to jet off to work early. And so then we just see Toya and everybody else at the party standing and talking. Toya is so messy. Toya sees a skinny lady walking by the bushes and says, hey y'all, there go Jackie. She's stalking us. So this is when we learn that Jackie, unfortunately, was not invited to the party. Toya says that Simone was wrong for not inviting Jackie to the party and that they're not going in the right direction. I know what Toya is saying, but I won't necessarily call Simone wrong. After this last blow up at Heavenly's house, I don't think her son's graduation party was the appropriate place for them to meet up. You want them to reconcile, but they don't seem to be close to that yet. And I wouldn't risk anything popping off at Michael's graduation party. I don't know if y'all watch Love and Marriage Huntsville, but I do. And we saw how the graduation party there went with Miss Wanda and Martell Holt, and then Kimmy getting mad about that. So look, I get it. You know, her son's party is not the appropriate place. It's sad that they're not in a good place right now, but I understand the non-invite. Next, we see a montage of Michael growing up on the show, and then, you know, everybody giving their speeches about how proud they are of Michael. The next scene is Jackie coming home from work to Curtis. Curtis is cooking some good old chicken in the air fryer. Jackie goes to freshen up, and then she comes out and tells Curtis how him cooking that chicken turns her on. And we all know that Jackie can't cook, doesn't like to cook. So I think that probably is one of her love languages. He's making sure that she has a hot meal when she gets home, even if it comes from an air fryer. And I ain't really like that shade because, air fryers are wonderful. Who wants to slave over a stove when it can get done in half the time or a fourth of a time in a pressure cooker or an air fryer? I'm here for it. Keep cooking it, Curtis. They talk about Heavenly's party, and Jackie expresses her disappointment about not being invited to Michael's graduation party. She delivered Michael. She had been in his life his whole life because they've had a 20-year friendship. So she's been there to see him grow up these last 18 years. But she knows that her and Simone are at an impasse, and she doesn't like where they are. She says that life got in the way after COVID, and she just couldn't believe at Damon's party where Jackie stated her issue being her comparing Heavenly's relationship to their 20-year friendship. She thinks that there's something more. Honestly, Jackie, there is. I think if Simone is all the way honest with herself, Jackie not interjecting with Simone and Heavenly when she normally would, and the actions that Jackie took towards Buffy in her non-apology towards Buffy, I think have shown Jackie in a different light to Simone. I think she's really starting to say, hey, you have some characteristics that I just don't think are becoming of a friend. And I don't know if I want that around me in my life anymore. It happens. One person's view of friendship and definition of friendship may be completely different from the other friend. And I think Simone is feeling that on a different level, because Jackie would normally step in and tell Heavenly, hey, you're going too far. This time, because she decided to sit out, Simone is like, you need to tell her when she's wrong if we're all going to be friends. And I agree. Your friend groups are there to hold you accountable. None of them are doing that right now. Curtis says that y'all are both stubborn, you're both wrong, and you need to get it together. I agree with Curtis, but they have to do it. Other people can't force them and push them to do it. We get back to the party. Toya and Simone are talking, and Toya told Simone, I really wish you just would have said, Jackie, let's work towards rebuilding trust. Simone goes on to tell Toya, you weren't there. You didn't see all of it. I took my ego away. I laid my heart on the line, and I told her exactly how I felt, but nothing was resolved. The last scene we see that Simone is going to Heavenly's house. Oh, yay. She goes to Heavenly's house and brings some wine as a peace offering gift. Wants to resolve their issues. We also learned last episode when we saw them doing the COVID tests that Simone wasn't invited to participate in the testing outreach. So that's why she wasn't there. It wasn't just on her. She wasn't invited as well. Heavenly wants to know where they went wrong. She wants to go back so that they don't ever have to go back again. Simone again references the tweets. You really went too low, Heavenly. Heavenly goes back even further and says, well, when Mariah was saying she had some receipts about Damon, you didn't say anything. And then it also felt like you jumped on Mariah's side and you took joy in what she was doing. And so she said that she thought the tweets that, even though it said Cecil, they were really coming from Simone. feeding them through Cecil. You know, here's my issue with that, right? Heavenly goes at everybody's husband in marriage and has this whole time, even with Jackie and Curtis, even Simone and Cecil, under the guise of a joke. When she hosted the couples event, she used personal information that she learned about each couple in a mean and passive aggressive way. I don't even know if it was passive aggressive, when she had them facing each other asking questions and had Cecil and Simone ask, Cecil asked Simone, was it just about money or whatever, when Cecil had taken the money. She's a true antagonist, but then she tries to act like she's not. Like, if you're going to be the antagonist, own that. Don't try to act like everybody is coming for your neck and you've never done anything. So by the time, even with Mariah said that because you made jokes, inappropriate comments about her husband's manhood size. She repeatedly asked you to not talk about her mother. And every time you got mad, the first thing out of your mouth was, your mama, your mama. And even when people corrected you, you kept doing it. And then would laugh. No. So yes, somebody's going to come after your marriage. You keep saying it's perfect. You keep opening yourself up to this level of critique. So don't try to act like the little wounded animal like Mariah was wrong. She wasn't wrong. She actually was the much bigger person because she decided not to release receipts. I wanted to release them. Still do. Mariah, if you're watching, release them, girl. Anyway, Simone says she understands social media gets in the way, stuff gets misconstrued, and, it gets out of hand sometimes. Heavenly then, apologizes yet again and says she's going to do better about her social media presence and her tweets, and that she will never do it again. Then she catches herself, as we all did, because honestly, all I kept hearing was Sunshine Anderson. Heard it all before. We've heard this all before, honey. You apologize every other week, every other season, every season actually. Say what you're not going to do. And as soon as you get angry or somebody says something that rubs you the wrong way, you jumping right back into your hood. Right back to calling somebody the B word. Right back to talking about somebody's mama. So we'll see. Simone then asks about Jackie. She says, Heavenly says that Jackie is doing fine, but that they really need to get their relationship together. And Simone says that she'll try to do what she can. And then we ended out by learning that Heavenly's dogs have eaten a dead squirrel. Now, I don't know if that was, it just seemed, maybe a little foreshadowing, a little poetic justice, honey. Everything is dead over there, and maybe it's time that we let some stuff die. Whether it's friendships or what, quit forcing things. Let it die, y'all. That's the end of this episode. It was okay. It could have been a lot better. I hope the season starts to progress a little more. But that's the end, y'all. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel. And I will see you here next week when we talk about episode 3. Bye, y'all.